discovered the incredible village that revealed heartwarming magic after 100 years of forgetting in Maple Grove, a quaint town where every handshake mattered and laughter flowed like the rivers nearby. Heartbreak loomed like dark clouds threatening a storm. Emily, just 28, was a teacher and a guardian to her younger brother Jake, battling each day since they'd lost their parents to a tragic car accident. Life for them wasn't just tough, it was an uphill climb amidst the sobering reality of dwindling jobs and creeping shadows of a corporate giant ready to engulf their cherished homes. But Emily wore resilience like armor. She rose early, in the half-light of dawn, to prepare lessons for her fifth graders. At school, she inspired minds, igniting the fire of curiosity in their eyes. On evenings and weekends, she waited tables at the local diner, where the clattering dishes mirrored the clinking weights on her weary heart. Every penny counted, every laugh shared, stitched them closer to community, to hope. It was one stormy afternoon when Emily, while rummaging through her late grandmother's attic, stumbled upon a dusty journal. It was hidden under an old quilt, untouched for decades. As she opened it, she was transported back to a past vibrant with warmth and community spirit. Tales of kindness filled the pages, detailing the Giving Circle, a magical tradition where neighbors banded together, lifting one another during life's trials. Emily felt a stirring deep inside. Was it nostalgia? Or a spark of inspiration to reignite that very magic? With the town on the brink of losing its very soul, Emily knew she had to act. She reached out to her neighbors, gathering them at the local community center, each invitation mama echoing her own grief, hope, and determination. Yet, she faced peculiar challenges. Mr. Kensington, the wealthy newcomer with sharp words as cold as steel, brushed off her efforts, declaring, "You can't fix what's lost with memories." The townspeople's eyes were hesitant. Their whispers echoed doubt, questions about her ability to inspire them. Despite the wall of resistance, Emily remained undaunted. Then, as if the universe answered her call, an elderly resident fell ill. The community now faced a daunting crisis, medical bills loomed, and neighbors needed to spread kindness anew. A pressing urgency hung thick in the air. With tenderness and a cracked voice, Emily gathered her neighbors once again, this time, fueled by the weight of impending loss. In that emotional moment, she poured out her grandmother's teachings from the journal. "Remember what we used to do?" she urged, her voice cracking with passion. "We can lift each other, just like they did." As her words spilled forth, she could see doubt flicker in the townsfolk's eyes, slowly transforming into reflections of a forgotten togetherness. Would they embrace this spirit of unity? It was an uphill battle, and just as they began to see a glimmer of hope among the shadows, the looming threat of their own deep-seated prejudices and fears stepped in their way. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Twilight fell, cloaking Maple Grove in shadows, yet Emily felt a surge of determination building within her. Would this be a moment of reckoning or a defeat against apathy and greed? As the days turned into a blur of tension and urgency, the community faced an answer. Could they pull together to save one another? Or would Emily's dreams for Maple Grove slip away like sand through fingers? The storm was closing in, and with it, an undeniable choice loomed. As the evening deepened, a soft drizzle began to fall, tapping gently against the windows of the community center where Emily's heart raced with both anxiety and hope. The townsfolk gathered hesitantly, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Uncertainty mixed with the flicker of old bonds slowly reigniting. Emily stood at the front, her voice steady despite the trembling of her hands. "Thank you all for coming," she said, hoping to draw them into the warmth of shared purpose. Blinking back the haze of doubt, she remembered the stories from her grandmother's journal. Each tale carried a promise of connection, of people coming together despite their differences. We all feel the weight of struggle, loss, fear, but together, we've weathered storms before. Mr. Kensington's brow furrowed, the shadows of skepticism creeping back across his face. And what of it, Emily? How do you expect us to lift the burden of one when we barely carry our own? Taking a deep breath, Emily pressed on. What if I told you that the strength of a community doesn't depend on individual burdens but on the kindness we show one another? The stories I found reminded me that long ago, we thrived on sharing not only joys but sorrows too. Let us honor that tradition. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd, some whispers of agreement clashing with those still shrouded in doubt. It was Billy, the local baker with flour dusting his apron, who broke the silence. Well, I remember when the church roof leaked, and we all chipped in to help fix it. I'd rather see us unite than drift apart. His voice rang with sincerity, sparking a flame of courage among others. Encouraged, Emily continued, each act, no matter how small, can lead to something bigger. I propose we start with a simple gesture. Let us create a giving circle. For anyone in need, be it meals, care, or support, we come together as a unit. Some nodded, but she could see the remaining fear etched in faces, the uncertainty locking them in place. Then, amid the crowd, an unexpected voice cut through. Mrs. Hargrove, a feisty woman in her 70s with a reputation for being spry despite her age. You know, I have a spare room in my home. If anyone needs a place to stay, I'll open my door. Emily's heart soared. One act of kindness sparked others. I can organize meal deliveries, piped in Ahmed, a college student who worked part-time at the grocery store. Slowly, the momentum shifted. Ideas flowed like the fresh rain outside, each suggestion weaving a tapestry of new hope. Yet just as things seemed to take shape, Emily felt a cold draft pierce her optimism. The door swung open, revealing Mr. Kensington, drenched but unwavering, eyebrows entangled in confusion. You are serious about this? You trust each other enough to help? This town has lost its laughter and spirit. Do you truly think it can come back? Why not? Emily countered, her resolve firming. We've let ourselves fade into shadows. It's time to invite the light back. A stunned silence enveloped the room, eyes now glued to Mr. Kensington. The tension was palpable. Did he see the flickering promise in their words, or was it just a reflection back at him of all he had wallowed in? As the weight of the moment hung thick, a small voice, Jake's, punctured the silence. Will you help us too, Mr. Kensington? The little boy's innocence shone through, breaking all barriers. It was then that Emily realized this battle was not just hers. The heartbeat of the townsfolk grew stronger, and now, it was time for their shared choice. Would they stand together and redefine their fate, or let fear chain them to the past? The storm outside raged, but in that room, the flicker of unity began to glow brighter. Yet as people turned to one another, a sudden crash echoed from outside, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. What was it? A new challenge lurked just around the corner. Would they step up, or would fear grip them once more? The crash echoed louder, a sharp clatter against the wooden floors. Everyone turned towards the entrance, apprehension plastered on their faces. The wind howled outside, and the rain lashed against the glass like a frantic message begging to be heard. Is everyone all right? A voice from the back of the room called out, trying to break the tension. It was Fred, the shy middle school teacher, peering through the crowd. Maybe it was just the wind. Emily could feel the heaviness in the air, each heartbeat pounding like a drum calling them to action. Let us find out, she urged, moving toward the door with hesitant steps. Her fingers brushed the cold handle, and she paused, turning back to face the gathered crowd. We can do this together. As she pushed the door open, a gust of chill air rushed inside, causing the flickering light overhead to sway. Outside, they saw it, a fallen branch from an ancient oak, its roots exposed, as if a piece of the past had finally given way. The loud crash that had sent them into a tailspin was just a remnant from nature, but the sight of the branch reminded Emily of something deeper, a connection to their shared history. Look at this big old tree. It's been here longer than most of us. It's like us, holding so much weight yet still standing. Emily's words hung in the air, weaving a tapestry of nostalgia and possibility. How many memories had been shared under the shade of that tree? An idea flickered in her mind. Let us gather around and bring this into our giving circle. This could be the spark we need. Slowly, one by one, the townsfolk moved closer, their fears hijacked by curiosity and courage. They began to discuss how they could create something meaningful from the fallen branch. Ideas blossomed. Could they carve it into a bench, a gathering place for children? What if they used it for storytelling nights under the stars? Every time someone sits here, they'll remember that we can come together, even when everything feels broken, Emily said, her eyes shining with hope. Mr. Kensington took a step closer, the edges of doubt softening on his face. And maybe this is what we've been missing, he said, his voice less skeptical, more inquisitive. A place where we can share stories, lend a hand. The laughter and spirit can flourish again, starting right here. Suddenly, Jake's charming voice piped up, can we paint it too? Bright colors that look like a rainbow. Emily laughed, finding warmth in the boy's enthusiasm. Yes, she exclaimed. Let this be a sign of our unity. We will all paint a part of it, each color telling a story of who we are. The air was charged with a new energy. The idea of going from strangers to family sparked smiles, and a rhythm of chatter filled the room. They started discussing colors, decorations, even ideas for what stories they could share. But just as excitement bubbled, Emily spotted the gray clouds outside. Was it possible that the storm was only beginning? Outside again, the wind picked up, causing the remaining leaves to swirl around them. Emily looked at Mr. Kensington, sensing an unspoken question lingering in the air. What if the storm outside isn't the biggest threat we face? What if we have more to fear from staying silent? Mr. Kensington stared at her, eyes narrowing. What do you mean? Emily breathed out, knowing the real battle was only just beginning. I mean that we'll need each other more than ever as we rewrite our story. As thunder rumbled, the townsfolk huddled together, feeling safe amid the brewing tempest. But deep down, Emily felt the tension rising. They weren't just building a bench, they were building trust and resilience. What awaited them in the warmth of that unity? Emily had no clue. But one thing was certain, change was on the horizon, and they would face it together. Yet a tawny shadow passed near the edges of their gathering. Something or someone lurked unseen, watching. What secret did it hold? The wind screeched, and the atmosphere felt electric, almost alive, as Emily's heart raced with uncertainty. The townsfolk stood in a tight cluster, their eyes darting around anxiously. She could feel the pulse of the moment, tiny quivers of anticipation and fear intertwined. All right, everyone, she said, putting her hands up to calm the anxious murmurs. Let us focus on the positive. Look at what we've already started. Emily gestured toward the fallen branch. This is a new beginning. The rain, the wind, it's simply nature reminding us of our roots. We can rise as one, just like that grand oak tree. Just then, a soft murmur echoed through the crowd. But what about what is out there? It was Clara, the town's elder, her wrinkled hands clutching her shawl tightly. Her eyes glimmered with wisdom and worry. What did Emily say? We have each other, Jake chimed in, his youthful enthusiasm cutting through the tension. Let us not be scared. Let us make this tree the coolest story bench ever. Laughter burst forth, uniting their spirits as they flashed smiles at the boy's unexpected strength. But Clara's voice shook slightly. What about the shadow? She pointed outside, her fingers trembling. Emily turned to where Clara pointed, but the dark figure was gone, sleeping as silently as the clouds that covered the moon. She swallowed hard, uncertainty crashing down like the storm outside. Maybe it was just a trick of the light. Or a bird. Just then, Fred spoke up, his voice gathering courage. Why don't we work on our plans for the bench? Let us pour our energy into that. A ripple of agreement spread through the group, but Emily noted the delicate weight of anxiety that still lingered. Right? Ideas first, then we'll tackle the mystery later. They gathered around the branch, brainstorming excitedly. Colors flew in the air like confetti, blue, green, yellow, and red. Each suggestion brought out memories, stories of shared laughter, childhood games, then evenings under the stars. Emily could almost see them weaving a vibrant tapestry that not only colored the bench but also their town's future. As they sketched ideas, the rain drummed steadily on the roof, creating an oddly comforting rhythm. In those moments, Emily felt her worries fade. They were creating more than a bench, they were creating a bond, a beacon of hope amid uncertainty. But as hours passed, the wild wind dulled slightly, replaced by an eerie stillness. The hushed conversations began to fade, suspicion creeping back like shadows in a dim light. Emily noticed Mr. Kensington staring intently out the window, his expression grave. I can't help but feel it's not just the storm, he muttered, concern edging in. What does that mean? Emily asked, her heart racing again. It feels like we are being watched. Like there is something out there. Another clap of thunder echoed ominously. The crowd's laughter dissolved, replaced by nervous glances. Let us finish our plans, Emily proposed, trying to keep their spirits high. Together. We face the storm and whatever is lurking out there. We can't let fear win. Just as they began to regain focus, a sudden crash echoed through the building, louder than anything before. The lights flickered, then for a heartbeat, panic took over. What was that? Someone whispered, voices trembling. Emily exchanged glances with Mr. Kensington, her resolve hardening once more. Stay together. She urged the group, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath. We face it as one. No matter what. The air was thick with tension, and Emily's heart thudded, feeling something monumental was about to unfold. As she turned towards the doors again, her stomach knotted with unease what awaited beyond their fragile circle of unity. With one deep breath, she stepped toward the door, the mystery drawing her in like a moth to the flame. What or who was beyond that door? Emily took a deep breath, her fingers grazing the cold metal of the doorknob. The moment hung in the air, thick with an anticipation that prickled her skin. She glanced back at the townsfolk, their faces a mix of fear and hope. This wasn't just about a bench anymore, something larger loomed ahead, beckoning them into the unknown. Are you ready? She whispered, trying to summon reassurance from the pit of her stomach. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others still frozen in uncertainty. She turned the knob slowly, the sound of creaking wood piercing the heavy silence. A rush of wind slipped into the room, causing her hair to whirl around her face. She squinted, trying to see through the dim light that spilled from the street lamp outside. And then she felt it. That same feeling Clara had spoken about, a weight, the shadow lurking just beyond the threshold. Her heart raced again, pounding as if it wanted to leap from her chest. Without thinking, she stepped through the door, the others following cautiously behind. The cool, damp air wrapped around them like a shroud. The street was desolate, the storm seeming to hold its breath, waiting. Where did it go? Fred's voice was small, barely above a whisper. I don't know, Emily replied, straining her eyes against the night. The shadows blurred into shapes that danced in the periphery of her vision. Suddenly, Clara yelled, "Look!" She pointed down the street, where a flicker of light emerged, a soft, warm glow that seemed almost inviting among the malevolence of the stormy night. Should we follow it? Jake asked, his voice trembling but filled with a strange courage. Yes, together, Emily affirmed, feeling a surge of determination. They stepped forward, their footsteps echoing on the cobblestones. As they approached the source of the light, the air grew warmer. Laughter suddenly bubbled forth, light and joyful, contrasting sharply with the oppressive atmosphere that had surrounded them moments before. Was it real? Or just their imaginations? Emerging from the shadows, they saw a beautiful clearing. A massive oak tree stood proudly in the center, its branches reaching out like open arms. Beneath it, a group of figures danced, glowing softly beneath the canopy. Emily blinked and nudged Mr. Kensington, who was equally entranced. Are those, he stammered, the town's spirits? In that instant, everything fell into place. Stories she had heard as a child surfaced, tales of the town's founding, of joy and community, of magic lost to the whispers of time. The dancers, glimpses of people long gone, twirled gracefully, enveloped in a sparkling mist. Their faces gleamed with the same warmth and hope that had filled the hall earlier. Emily stepped forward, unable to resist. Do you see them? She breathed. The weight in her chest lifted, replaced by something unfamiliar yet deeply familiar at the same time. The dancers turned to her, as if sensing her presence. Their smiles lit up the night like fireflies breaking through a dark sky. One of the figures, an elderly woman with kind eyes, extended her hand, inviting Emily closer. Join us, the woman beckoned softly, her voice carrying a symphony of comfort and nostalgia. The spell of fear that had captured the townsfolk began to dissolve, as if the shadows themselves were retreating before the light of the clearing. Driven by an overwhelming sense of connection, Emily reached out to take the woman's hand. But just as she was about to step forward, a powerful crack of thunder sounded, shattering the moment. Instinctively, she looked back at her friends, uncertainty flashing in their eyes. Wait! She called out, fear gripping her heart once again. What if this was a trick? What if the shadows were waiting for them to stray too far? Before she could pull away, the clearing began to fade, and the luminous dance turned into a whirlwind of colors that cycled through the sky. Don't let go of what matters. The woman cried, her voice now mingling with the thunder, mixing hope with urgency. Emily felt the energy of the crowd behind her. They were poised to take a leap of faith. Even as shadows lacked close. But could she truly trust this vision? Suddenly, the forest around them erupted with light and sound, pulling her attention away. With her heart racing, Emily faced the dancers once again. Would she choose to embrace this magical moment or retreat back into the safety of the familiar darkness? As decisions loomed, the air transformed, thickening with anticipation. Something deeper than fear now stirred within her, a longing, a pull towards understanding what lay hidden in the heart of their town. It was the key to everything that connected them. Drawing on their shared strength, she stepped towards the light once more, determined to uncover the truth of this afterlife that had come alive once more in their forgotten town. But as the magic swirled around them, a shadow suddenly loomed behind. Emily spun around, dread washing over her. What was following them now? She could almost hear the echo of the town's pulse. Their legacy depended on it. Would they rise, or would they fall into despair? Emily's heart raced as she turned back to the dancers, their joyful expressions shifting to worry. The shadow loomed larger, an unavoidable darkness creeping through the clearing, making the colors around them dim. It felt like a cold hand grasping at her throat, the reminder of the fear that had haunted this town for generations. Stay close, she shouted, summoning what little courage she had left. The townsfolk clustered around her, their faces a mix of uncertainty and trepidation. What do we do now? Fred's voice trembled, his eyes darting from the glowing figures to the encroaching darkness. We face it, Emily replied, though her insides twisted at the uncertainty of her own words. She took a tentative step forward, glaring at the shadow that had begun flickering like a candle struggling to stay lit. But the elderly woman with the kind eyes held her ground. You must remember. The shadows only have power when fear guides your hearts. Her soothing voice drifted through the air, wrapping around Emily like a comforting blanket. Remember, Clara whispered, her brow furrowing in thought. The stories, it's all connected. Realization washed over Emily like a wave, filling her with the warmth of hope. The town's history wasn't just a tale of loss, it was also one of resilience, of togetherness. Could that really be the answer? Yes. Emily shouted, the wave of determination flooding through her. We can't let fear take over. We have to remember who we are together. The townsfolk murmured in agreement, their courage bubbling to the surface. She could see it in their eyes, a spark igniting just beneath the doubts. Hold hands. Emily called out, reaching for Clara and Fred. One by one, their fingers intertwined. As they formed a chain, she felt the warmth of their unity grow stronger, radiating like light pushing back against the dark. The shadow hesitated, flickering uncertainly in the wake of their shared resolve. Emily could sense the energy shift as each person's breath filled the space with a harmony that cut through the tension. Remember your loved ones. The elderly spirit urged. Remember the laughter, the joy. That is the magic which drives away despair. As the memories swirled around them, images flooded into Emily's mind, block parties filled with laughter, children playing in the park, families gathered around a table sharing meals and stories. Each recollection added to the light clinging to her, wrapping around all of them like a protective barrier. Together. She echoed, feeling a newfound strength coursing through her veins. United in our memories, we can push it away. With their hands held tight, the group took a step toward the shadow, each heartbeat sinking like a drum. A deafening roar emanated from the darkness, and the shadow surged forward, but Emily didn't falter. She squeezed Clara's hand tighter, letting the warmth of her friends fuel her courage. In that moment, the clearing pulsed around them as if alive, responding to their united stance. The laughter of the dancers swelled, mingling with the energy of the townsfolk, transforming the sound into a thundering symphony that began to resonate through the air. The shadow grew weaker, wavering like a mirage. Keep believing. Emily shouted, fire igniting in her chest. The energy shifted again, stronger this time. It was a collective memory, a force that had been buried but never forgotten. With one final push, Emily cried out, love and connection will always defeat despair. Suddenly, the dark shadow imploded, dissipating into nothingness, leaving behind a bright shimmer of light that filled the space with warmth and laughter. The spirits danced higher, twinkling like stars igniting the night sky. But as the crowd cheered, the elderly woman raised her finger. The past is only part of your story. The future awaits. Emily's heart dropped as she realized the weight of those words, her breath hitching. What did she mean? Was this just the beginning of something deeper, a journey that would change everything? The celebration around them buzzed with energy, but her mind swirled with questions. What exactly lay ahead? The ground beneath them tremored ever so slightly, hinting that their newfound freedom had awakened something more in the world around them. Emily! Jake shouted, pulling her attention. Look! Beyond the clearing, the trees seemed to bend slightly, as if parting for a new path. And there it stood, something shimmering, a doorway leading into the very heart of the forest, beckoning them forward. Are we ready? Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper as hope and apprehension danced within her. Was it time to take the next step into the unknown? What awaited them on the other side? The shimmering doorway pulsed gently, radiating warmth and wonder. A familiar thrill ran through Emily's chest, chasing away the last remnants of doubt. It felt as if the forest itself was inviting them to step into a world untouched by time. The trees whispered secrets, and she instinctively knew they could no longer stay in the safety of the clearing. Do you feel it? Clara's voice broke through the buzzing excitement, her wide eyes fixed on the ethereal light. It's like the forest has been waiting for us. Emily nodded, her heartbeat quickening. It made sense, didn't it? After all they had just faced, all they had come to understand, this wasn't just a physical journey. It was about embracing what had been lost, about reclaiming the magic that had been buried beneath fear and isolation. Jake stepped closer, his expression fierce with determination. Together, right. Always together, Emily affirmed, the smile breaking through her anxious thoughts. With one more look at the townspeople, she felt a rush of strength pour through her. Let us do this. She shouted, taking the first step forward, leading her friends toward the doorway. Their hands still clasped, they crossed the threshold as one, feeling the world around them thin, as though stepping through a veil separating two realities. When they emerged on the other side, the transformation was breathtaking. The forest was alive with colors that shimmered like jewels, deep greens mingled with vibrant purples, and the air buzzed with the sound of joy laughter echoing in the distance. It was magical, almost dreamlike, and every heartbeat reminded them they were no longer bound by the weight of fear. What is this place? Fred looked around, his voice filled with awe. Maybe a reflection of who we are. Clara speculated, twirling in a small circle as if dancing through a memory. As they ventured deeper, they stumbled upon a gathering of spirits, their forms dancing, their laughter harmonious with the wind. The villagers from their own town had stories behind their smiles, tales of happiness that felt ancient yet immediate. Look! Emily gasped as she spotted a shimmering orb spinning with light. Inside, she could see flashes of her childhood, birthday parties, family gatherings, and even the first time she learned to ride a bike. The memories felt warm on her skin, wrapping around her like a beloved blanket. I can see my parents. I'll never forget their voices. The joy and love we shared. Me too. Clara added, her eyes glistening as she watched her past unfold before her. But as the visions danced for them, the new shifting shadow wormed its way into their world, creeping along the edges of the gathering. Its sinister form loomed like a dark storm cloud threatening to snuff out the light. No! Emily shouted, recognizing the fear creeping back into her heart. Not again. The elderly woman's words echoed in her mind. Fear had power. They had just faced it, and they could do it again. Together. We have to remember again. She urged her friends, their bonds tightly woven with their memories. A collective shout rang out as they reached for each other, their voices uniting like a choir. Everyone present the spirits, their townsfolk joined in. The connection strengthened, then Emily could feel the light pushing back against the encroaching shadow. Yet, that shadow was more formidable this time. It pulsed with a darkness that felt hungry, and she could almost hear it whispering, "You think you can reclaim what you lost? It's all in vain." A chill ran through her. Was it true? Could they really face this darkness again? Don't let it in. Jake yelled, and with renewed strength, they surged forward, courageous against the threat. But the whispers grew louder, clawing at their hope. Emily's heart raced as the shadow fought desperately against their light, desperate to reclaim what it had lost. Push it back. Emily shouted, her voice filled with fervor as she dug deep for the memories that meant the most to her. With every push, every chant, every vibrant recollection, the fight became more intense. And then, just as quickly as it seemed to arise, a gasp from the back of the group drew everyone's attention. Look! Someone cried out, pointing at the opening to the depths of the forest where a new light began to bloom, mixing with the darkness as if inviting a truce. What is happening? Clara whispered, the mixture of fear and curiosity illuminating her face. Emily couldn't help but wonder, was this the end of their past fears, or the beginning of a new challenge? The door had opened, but what lay inside might just change everything they thought they knew about themselves and their town. Would they find healing or face an even greater darkness? With their hearts pounding and hands gripped tightly, they stood on the threshold of a new adventure, staring deep into the unknown. What awaited them beyond the curtain of light? A sudden hush fell over the forest, wrapping Emily and her friends in a blanket of stillness. The soft glow of the light that had emerged seemed to beckon, pulsating gently as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Emily's pulse quickened in time with it, an instinctual pull urging them closer. What happens if we go in? Jake mused, stepping forward cautiously. Emily glanced at the others. Clara's eyes widened with both excitement and caution. Fred shifted his weight, uncertainty flickering across his face. But there was something about the light, its promise felt both inviting and terrifying. I guess we'll never know unless we try, she whispered, her voice edged with adrenaline. With a shared look, they stepped closer. The light grew brighter, enveloping them in warmth that reached deep into their chests. Just as they were about to cross the threshold, a gust of wind swept through, making Clara shiver. Are we sure about this? Fred asked, glancing back nervously. We've made it this far together, Emily replied firmly, her heart warmed by the memories of laughter and love that had carried them through the darkness before. Suddenly, the shadow loomed, twisting and curling around the edges of their vision, reminding them of its presence. But this time was different, they were no longer alone. The spirits around them began to shimmer more brightly, as though recognizing the challenge they faced. You must face what you fear. A voice from the gathering rose above the howling wind. It was an older spirit, her features soft yet resolute. To truly move forward, you must confront the darkness inside and outside. The words struck Emily like lightning, igniting a fire of determination within her. We can do this. She called, her voice strong. It isn't just about us, it's about everyone, our families, our home. The others nodded. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, the surge of energy flowing through her as feet crossed into the pool of light. One by one, her friends followed, gripping each other's hands tightly. As they moved deeper, the cacophony of whispers from the shadowed space morphed, becoming a single voice of uncertainty. You think you are safe in there? Secrets will be revealed, hearts will be tested. The light pulsed brightly, clashing with the darkness, creating a stunning visual symphony that surrounded them. It sparked in a prism of colors, illuminating the shadows with a fierce intensity. They could feel the darkness try to claw its way inside their hearts, but they stood stronger together. Hold on. Emily yelled as she felt a sharp pull from the shadows, recalling her love, her joy, her family. We are not afraid. The lighted space erupted with energy, spirits, memories, and laughter mixing together to form a vibrant tapestry of color. The shadows shrank back momentarily, revealing pieces of the villagers' lives trapped in the darkness for so long. Faces, moments, and stories each bathed in light, echoing hopes and dreams that were longing to be remembered. See what you can reclaim. The elder spirit urged, her voice musical yet commanding. Emily looked around, feeling an overwhelming sense of purpose filling the air. It was not just about fighting the darkness, it was about unearthing all the love and joy that had been forgotten within the townsfolk's hearts. As she reached toward the memories floating around her, she felt a spark. It was her past, her family, and then she recognized her own town. Let us remind everyone who they are. Clara shouted, her voice electric. With a collective heart, their spirit, illuminated and interconnected, surged forward. The shadows writhed, desperation clawing at them, but they pressed on, determined to reclaim their narrative. Emily closed her eyes, the past flooding her mind, each fragment a reminder of what was worth fighting for. She could feel Jake, Clara, and Fred beside her, their memories intertwining with hers, chanting their own stories into the light. And then, just as they thought they could hold back the shadows, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath them, splitting the vibrant energy. Like a knife. What is happening? Jake shouted, barely audible above the tumult. As they huddled together amid the chaos, the ground trembled beneath their feet and the light shifted, revealing a massive door behind them. An ancient symbol etched upon it glowed, then Emily's breath hitched in her throat. Go back. Or step through. She asked, a torn between risking everything or facing the unknown. The pulse of light was a new heartbeat, one they had yet to understand fully. Far beyond the threshold was something monumental, and it was calling their names. What would they find? Was it another fear to conquer or the key to unlocking their true potential? They stood at the edge, the weight of their choices heavy in the air. Together. Emily whispered, gripping their hands tighter. But could they truly embrace whatever lay ahead? The door loomed larger, an imposing presence that both intimidated and intrigued Emily and her friends. Her heart raced, echoing the rhythm of the glowing light that now seemed to merge with the very fabric of the forest around them. Together, she repeated, her voice steadier this time, like an anchor in the tumult. Jake, Clara, and Fred tightened their grip. The shadows were still there, lurking at the edges of their vision, but the light surged with newfound intensity, as if feeding off their courage. What is the worst that can happen? Jake murmured, projecting an air of bravado. But the tremble in his voice gave it away. Uncertainty weighed heavily on them all. Pushing through the tension, Emily realized that they were faced not just with a physical door but a metaphorical one. Stepping into the unknown meant embracing change, opening themselves to whatever lay beyond. She thought of her family, her town, and all the laughter that had once saturated every corner before sorrow and darkness had slowly crept in. Cautiously, they moved forward, heartbeats synchronized in an electrifying rhythm. The ground shook again, the low growl that reverberated deep within their chests. Emily exhaled, the breath a fragile whisper, "We are ready." With a collective push, they stepped through. Time felt suspended. The air was thick with energy, both exhilarating and daunting. As they crossed the threshold, a brilliant light exploded around them, scattering shadows into the corners of their minds. They were surrounded by a landscape that seemed to pulse with memories, a vibrant tapestry woven from their past and present. Strikes of color exploded like fireworks, their town captured in joyous moments of community, laughter ringing out from familiar faces silhouetted in the dazzling light. They saw their friends, families, moments from birthdays and festivals, filled with the warmth of togetherness. "Look!" Clara exclaimed, pointing towards a vision of the town square, once filled with tight-knit gatherings, now partly obscured by a shadowy veil. "It's like a memory," Fred whispered, or spilling over the edges of his disbelief. Emily's heart ached as she realized, it's all here waiting for us. Just as their spirits soared, the ground heaved beneath them, and the light flickered, dimming for a moment. In that split second, shadows grasped at them, trying to pull them back into despair. "You have to believe." The elder spirit's voice echoed in their minds. "Only faith will illuminate the darkness." Emily's eyes narrowed with resolve. "We want to go back," she shouted, inspiration surging through her. They were not just reclaiming their stories, they were reigniting the bond of community, the essence that made their village what it once was. The light surged once more, wrapping around them, pushing the shadows back. They raised their hands toward the vibrant memories, feeling the heartbeat of their town intertwine with their own. They closed their eyes and shouted as one, "Remember us." In that moment, the fracture between light and shadow healed, shimmering and swirling, a barrier disappearing into shimmering particles. The past merged with the present, filling them with clarity and purpose. They felt the whispers of the villagers, a chorus of voices intertwining with theirs. A blinding flash engulfed them, and the shadows dissolved, washed away by waves of color and laughter, until there was silence again. As the light faded, Emily opened her eyes, trembling with exhilaration and trepidation. Standing before them was not just their town, they could sense the hearts of every lost villager echoing through the vibrant color still lingering in the air. "Do you feel it?" Jake asked, his voice raw with hope. "Yes," Fred answered, his eyes bright with realization. For the first time in what felt like eras, they didn't just feel the warmth of their connection, they felt a magnetic pull to understand their new reality, a chance to rekindle old bonds and rewrite their story. But just as they began to absorb what was around them, a whisper floated through the air, soft yet penetrating. Now, the true test begins. What will you do to preserve this light? Eyes widening, the group realized their journey was far from over. They were elated but unprepared, for as brightly as they had reclaimed their love and memories, the shadows had not completely vanished. This was but a beginning. Then ahead lay the challenge of nurturing this newfound light against the encroaching darkness. What sacrifices would they have to make to keep the spirit alive? Would they be strong enough to ignite that community spark anew? With the echo of the last whispers hanging in the air, Emily and her friends stood together in the heart of their beloved maple grove, where sunlight now filtered through the branches above, illuminating their path forward. They had touched something magical, rekindled the warmth of connection and community, yet they knew that this was not just a fleeting victory. This was the moment to nurture the bond of unity they had rediscovered. Together, we can't let this light fade again, Emily declared, her heart pounding with purpose. The spirits around them shimmered, a gentle reminder of all that they had fought for. The townspeople who had once been fractured suddenly seemed whole, their eyes reflecting the vibrancy of a community regained. Let us invite everyone back, Jake suggested, the gleam in his youthful gaze. We need to celebrate. It's time to share the news. Clara added, then let us not just tell them, let us show them. We've got the bench, we've got the stories, we can create a place where memories are honored. Inspiration flowed around them like the warm breeze, each person adding their own ideas to the mix. Soon, laughter floated back into the air, echoing against the trees that had witnessed their trials and triumphs. Let us gather for a festival, Fred suggested enthusiastically. A celebration of everything that South made Maple Grove home. We'll share our stories, paint the bench, and bring everyone together. Emily's heart swelled as she envisioned the plan. They would reclaim the town's vibrant past, integrating old traditions with the hopes of new ones, binding the community with laughter and love. Yes. A festival where we can honor everyone who has been a part of our story. Days passed, bustling with preparations as laughter spilled from every corner of the town. Flyers were posted, children painted vibrant signs, and even Mr. Kensington found himself helping as he began to understand the importance of community, not just for others, but for himself as well. His skepticism had been replaced with an eagerness to bring the town back to life, a testament to the beautiful transformation happening before them. Finally, the day arrived, and the sun rose over Maple Grove in a breathtaking burst of color. Emily stood by the newly painted bench, adorned with bright hues, each stroke telling a story. The festival filled the air with joyful sounds, music danced through the trees, laughter intertwined with the refreshing scent of baking bread and sweet treats filling the diner. Families gathered, friends reconnected, bonds strengthened, and the very spirit of the town seemed to pulse with life. As the night fell, the glow from the community bonfire warmed their hearts. Emily stepped onto a makeshift stage, feeling the weight of every gaze upon her. Thank you for being here, she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Today, we celebrate not just our past, but the love that holds us together. She glanced at Jake, who smiled at her proudly, the shadows of loss finally cast aside. We've all faced darkness, she continued, but we have the power to foster light. As long as we hold on to each other, we can create a future where no one walks alone. The crowd erupted in cheers, a chorus of voices honoring their connection, their shared stories becoming part of the living fabric of Maple Grove. The elderly spirits danced around them, their joy mimicking that of the townsfolk, a palpable harmony settling into the very core of their beings. Then they began to share stories, moments of sorrow laced with hope, joys that had been buried but now shimmered anew beneath the starlit sky. Emily listened, her heart swelling with a mix of joy and gratitude for what they were creating. Every voice added to the melody of resilience, replacing fear with laughter, despair with kindness. And that was the magic they had discovered again, roots intertwined with dreams, each branch reaching for the sun, bound by the love they shared. As the flame flickered up high that night, illuminating their faces, Emily knew without a doubt that they had rewritten their story not just as individuals but as an inseparable community. Their hearts beat together like a symphony, turning the page to a brighter future, echoing with the promise of hope. With renewed energy, she looked at her friends and all the faces around her. This is just the beginning. Together, we will face whatever comes next. Together, we'll keep the light alive. The warmth of their friendship expanded, filling Maple Grove with the spirit of community. They were a united front against the shadows, and as they celebrated, Emily felt a surge of happiness course through her. This was home. This was family. As the last spark of the bonfire crackled and faded, she sensed what lay ahead, a path filled with challenges, yes, but also profound joy, swelling with laughter and connection as they forged onward into a future rich with possibility. In that moment, under the starlit sky, they had not only reclaimed their history but had also woven a tapestry of new beginnings. They were ready to share it, ready to nurture it, and ready to embrace the boundless love that surrounded them all. As the fire dwindled, the shadows lingered, but now, they felt no fear. They were bound by a light they discovered together, and with hearts full of hope, they took a step forward into a future bright with promise. Now, if you love this journey and want to keep experiencing amazing stories that inspire and uplift, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait not even one more second. Your support is vital to keep the stories coming. And remember to hit that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every click helps us reach more readers who need to hear these tales. I want to hear from you. Comment below with your feelings about this ending and how this story impacted you. And please share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, let us spread the magic of community and connection.